And we are back with the fifth segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this fifth segment, I'm going to give a little bit of a recap of what happened in the WNBA yesterday and now that the finals are set. So I was strongly in favor of the Suns, the Connecticut Sun, to end up winning this game. However, I couldn't really pick between the two teams. I was more lenient on, I expected the Lynx to come out with this win, and they ended up coming out with the win. So I don't want to say that I was right, because I didn't really definitely pick who I thought was going to win, but I did favor the Lynx in this series, and I felt like the Lynx had much more of an advantage going into this game with the ability to close out the series more so than the Connecticut Sun did. And what ended up happening. So, as I said in the previous segment before, it's a Game 5. It's an elimination game. If you get this far in the postseason, and if you get this far in a playoff series, it means that the teams are evenly matched. Chances are, whichever team has the best player on the court is going to win the game. 9 out of 10 times, that's what's going to happen in these basketball series. And this applies for the NBA, this applies for the WNBA. Whichever team produces the best player on the court is going to win the game in a Game 7. So, and last night, the best player on the floor was, as I predicted, Napheesa Collier. She had another big game tonight. She scored 27 points, ended with 11 rebounds, as well as 4 assists, and along with 4 blocks as well, while also shooting 10 for 16 from the field. Fantastic game, an elimination game. When you're at home, you do what you're supposed to do, and that's exactly what Collier did. Fantastic game. And to add more insult to injury, the Sun were unable to produce the second best player on the floor for this game. The second best player on the floor was arguably Courtney Williams. She ended the game 24 points, 9 for 16 from the field, and 3 for 3 from 3. It's very, very repetitive, so I apologize for that, but bear with me. She also ended the game with 7 assists and 5 rebounds as well. And I'm getting a call from the school saying that there's a lot of traffic. Boo-hoo. Anyways, yes, so the fact that the Lynx were able to produce the two best players on the court gives them a huge advantage, especially since they were playing in the home court. And it's really this is just what you're supposed to do when you have the home court advantage, and when you're at home in an elimination game. You have to capitalize on that. They were able to steal a game, and the Connecticut Sun, they could have won this series had they won both of the home games that they were going to play. But they ended up losing the first home game that they played, which allowed the Lynx to sort of, have a chance to stay alive. And what's worse for the Sun is that they probably didn't even produce the third best player on the court, to be honest with you, in this game. And you could argue that the third best player on the court was actually, let me just go ahead through the box scores, was Kayla McBride. And she ended the game with 19 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, and was 8 for 16 from the field. Didn't really shoot all that well from 3 for 9, but still, the fact that shooting 3 for 9 from the three-point line is still, the third best player on the court, that's saying a lot to how the Connecticut Sun ended up playing in this game. The best player for the Connecticut Sun was DeJounte Carrington, and even then, I don't think that game was all that impressive. And she ended the game with 17 points, 12 rebounds, yes, but also had to shoot 4 for 14 from the field. That is not good. Taking away the free throws, which were 9, by the way, that would mean that, aside from the free throws, which I understand are part of the game, she would have had less than double-digit points. And that's something that cannot happen. She would have had 8 points in this game had she not knocked down some of the free throws. And you really cannot perform like that and expect the rest of your team to follow suit and expect to come out with a win. And one of the more efficient players for the Sun was Brianna Jones, ended the game 7 of 12, 16 points. But everybody else on the Connecticut Sun were highly, highly inefficient. Now, you can make the argument that maybe some of them were like really gassed because they had to play almost 40 minutes in this game, almost 40 minutes because, the whole starting lineup, it would make sense that the whole starting lineup plays in almost every single minute of the game, and the rotation not being all that deep doesn't really help the team either. But again, the Lynx were able to produce the best player on the court, the second best player on the court, and arguably the third best player on the court. When you have that kind of combination, it is very, very difficult to beat. It didn't matter that the Lynx's bench wasn't really performing. It didn't matter that for example, Bridget Carlton ended up shooting 1 for 7 from the field. That didn't matter because those three players were not going to lose that game and they were not going to walk out with an L in their home court. That's just how it was, especially Collier. I mean, she did everything that she could to play phenomenally in this game, and it went well. So, again, 9 times out of 10, whichever team produces the best player on the court is going to win the game in a Game 7. Now, granted, this didn't happen. You could argue that this didn't happen last season when Anthony Edwards, he wasn't all that great in the elimination game going into Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets. And you could argue that this was more of a choke job from Denver as opposed to, because it really was a choke job from Denver. They were up by so many points in the half, and then after that, they just ended up collapsing. I think that loss was more so Jokic just being bad and throwing the game away for them in, theoretical terms, because he was very, very bad in this game. And because of that, it allowed the rest of the team to have more of an advantage and more of an ability to capitalize on the fact that one of the best players was playing bad, and saying that, oh, we have a shot. We genuinely have a shot. Because Anthony Edwards was awful in that Game 7. The rest of the team, however, was great. So, well, not really great, but they did more than enough than they needed to end up winning that series. So, you can make the argument that that doesn't happen all the time, but it's almost all the time that happens. So, right now, the Lynx are going to be set to play the Liberty tomorrow at 8 o'clock on ESPN. Where do I even begin? It's on a day where there's football. The finals, the WNBA Finals, is going to happen at the same time as football. Thursday night football. That does not work. They're not going to get anyone watching that game. They just won't. I'm sorry, but there's half of the reason why the viewership is down in a lot of these WNBA postseason games. 2 reasons. 1, Caitlin Clark's not in it. 2, the timing of these games. It is terrible. I'm sorry that I keep bickering about this and I keep bringing this up every time, but you're coming off of your best season, in terms of viewership, and now you're just throwing it away with these games that are going on at around NFL, around the time of the NFL. I can guarantee you, nobody is going to tune into that finals. Nobody is going to tune into that finals. I'm not going to tune in. I'm going to watch the highlights, and I'm going to watch the game after I watch the NFL football game, because that's just how it works. In the United States, that's just how it works, and there's nothing that any other sport can do to change that. I don't understand why the WNBA thinks that that's going to happen. What would have been the problem with having this WNBA game start at 6:30 or something like that? Some time that's going to happen before the NFL, because that way people who want to watch sports, they can watch the WNBA, and then immediately after they can go ahead and watch football. It's the one thing that makes sense. You can't have these two sports conflicting with each other. It just won't work. The NBA tried it, didn't work. Why does the WNBA think that they can do it? Just because they had one great year where they had positive viewership because of one great player? I'm sorry, it just does not make any sense. So that's my opinions. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of that. But that's all that I really have to say for this show. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so remember to subscribe to the show, leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates as usual. Please remember to use the link in the description to get your comments recognized, or the link displayed below the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net, or use Super Chat, and you can send in your comments and or donations that way. Either or really helps the show. That's all that I really have for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your host, Nelson, and as always, take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna